Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the fifth episode of my third series, Cardio Training. It is part one of my own theory of how cardio training will influence your muscle growth. And the title of this episode is The Silent Governor of Your Own Genetic Limit. Now, in the default setting of the current fitness culture, genetic limit refers to the maximum amount of muscle mass you can put on your frame naturally by weight training. And allegedly, there is a ceiling height you cannot break without the assistance of anabolic steroids, fat-free mass index 25. And this figure, FFMI 25, is the traditional definition of genetic limit. Off the topic, if you're shooting for a physique that is more realistic and much easier to maintain than the genetic limit, but still has enough muscularity, aesthetics, and performance, then you definitely want to check my previous episodes, Generic Ceiling Height, Your Destined and Physique, and Generic Ceiling Height Part 2, Line in the Sand. I purposely coined this term generic ceiling height. Go ahead and watch these two episodes. You will understand why this term is more important to, I would say, 95% of natural lifters. For the remaining 5% who want to get absolutely jacked, stay with me on this episode because this episode is of particular importance to you lot. Now, personally, I don't believe in this traditional definition of genetic limit. Not only because I have broken this limit with only about 3 years training, and there are quite a few natural fitness stars who obviously have surpassed fat-free mass index 25. But more importantly, as I dive deep into the study of human physiology, I begin to realize that the traditional definition of genetic limit is quite detached from human physiology. There should be a new definition to replace the traditional version that makes much more sense, not only in the context of muscle hypertrophy, but more importantly, in the context of health and longevity. But before I give out this new definition, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. It takes less than a second, costs you nothing, and will help me a great deal in delivering the most efficient muscle building knowledge to the whole world. I really appreciate your support. Now, back to my video. Why do we need a new definition for the genetic limits? In order to better understand the new definition of a genetic limit, we have to take a few steps back and upgrade our understanding on a more basic index, body mass index, also known as BMI. It is an index that is calculated by dividing your weight in kilograms by your height in meters squared. And there are categories to determine whether you are underweight, healthy weight, overweight, or obese. For example, at the peak of my second round of serious bulking in November 2024, I weighed 87 kilos at 170 centimeters. That gives me a BMI of 30.1, which puts me under obese category. And for anyone that is or has been troubled by weight issues, like me for the majority of my life, you must already know the danger of high BMI from your doctors. You have to lose some weight to improve your health conditions. However, this useful medical screening tool has been mocked again and again and again by the current fitness culture for a seemingly plausible justification. The body mass index does not differentiate between muscle and fat in its calculation. The extra body mass we gym bros are carrying is muscle tissue, not fat tissue. And muscle is an asset, not a liability. So obviously, we jacked dudes definitely don't have the same problem as you fat slobs. And BMI is only a joke for us. Well, I have got some bad news for you gym bros. The extra muscle mass that you are so proud of, if anything, is even a bigger liability to your heart than the extra fat mass that some other people are carrying. Because muscle, as you know, is a much more metabolically active tissue than fat, and thus requires more cardiovascular support from your heart. In fact, don't just listen to me. Listen to Christian Dabadao, who is much more jacked than me, talking about why you shouldn't joke about BMI and the importance of cardiovascular fitness on muscle mass on Elite FTS Table Talk interviews.
Normally, you cannot hope to maintain maximum amount of muscle as you're getting older because muscle is a metabolically costly tissue. And it also puts strain on the heart. And that's something that people don't realize. People like to make fun of the body mass index, the BMI, right? And it's stupid. I mean, you cannot use that as a body composition tool. But that's not why it was developed. It was developed by actuaries to quickly evaluate the risk that you're going to die soon. So for insurance companies, without having to do all kind of invasive tests, they needed a way to figure out what's your life expectancy. So they found that the higher your BMR is, the less likely you are to have a long life. And that's actually true, regardless of if the mass is muscle or fat. If anything, muscle requires more cardiovascular support because it's active tissue. You need to send oxygen to the muscles. You need to send blood to the muscle. The bigger the muscle mass you have, the harder your heart works every single day. And as you mentioned earlier, the more oxygen you're using. So the most oxidative stress you're producing. All of that is not conducive to longevity. I'm not telling you to become a road cyclist, but certainly trying to strive to constantly get bigger when you're in the 50s and 60s, that might not be the best thing to do, okay? Unless you are willing to invest a lot of time in improving cardiovascular capacity.
Yes.
I believe that, and that's important, okay? If you want to stay big as you get older, you want to build more muscle and be healthy as you're getting older, get your fucking cardio done. Because the stronger your cardiovascular system is, the less stressful carrying that muscle becomes. And so that would be one reason to actually up the cardio as you're getting older, to be allowed to have more muscle mass.
There you go, guys. BMI is never meant to be a laughing stock, and there is a clear connection between cardiovascular fitness and muscle mass, even in the eyes of one of the most legendary strength and conditioning coaches. And I echo with every word of what Christian Dabadao said. If you want to stay big as you get older, if you want to build more muscle and be healthy as you get older, get your freaking cardio done. If there's one thing we can be sure about our body, it is that our body is far more intelligent than what we give credit for. There are 30 trillion cells in our body, and in any single second, there are countless processes happening in the body, including breathing, heartbeats, digestion, nerve signals, and cellular activities, all working together to maintain homeostasis. We're completely unaware of most of the decisions made by these countless physiological processes. Yet, this infinitely complex structure called our body is still operational every second of every day. Needless to say, the intelligence that physiology commands should never be underestimated. By the same token, it would be an extremely difficult task to ask our physiology to do something willingly that may endanger the survival of the body in future. And in the case of muscle mass and cardiovascular fitness, this extremely difficult task is to ask the body to carry more muscle mass than the heart could possibly handle. This will definitely endanger the survival of the body. But conversely, if you increase your cardiovascular fitness, then your heart can handle more muscle mass. Then you can have more muscle growth potential. And not surprisingly, Dr. Andy Galpin agrees with me on Huberman Guest series, Build Strength and Muscle.
A very recent study came out where they had individuals perform 6 weeks of purely aerobic endurance, steady state, long duration endurance for 6 weeks, I think, prior to starting a hypertrophy phase. Compared that to individuals who did not do that. And those folks that did these 6 weeks of just, I think it was cycling actually, just endurance work, had more muscle growth at the end of their hypertrophy training than those folks that did not. So this shows you very clearly there are a lot of advantages that come with being physically fit to growing muscle. So folks that also have actually hit plateaus a lot, one of the things you may actually see some benefit from is actually doing a little bit more endurance work, whether it's the steady state stuff, maybe it's the higher intensity stuff. Certainly if you're starting a training phase, it's a pretty good idea to do that.
And that is where my own theory, the silent governor, coming from. Your cardiovascular fitness will ultimately determine how much muscle mass you can carry without compromising your health conditions. Because psychology dictates that the heart is the most important muscle of the whole body, and before it has to be compromised, something else has to be compromised first, like the potential muscle growth. Therefore, although cardiovascular fitness is rarely mentioned within the purview of muscle growth, it is the silent governor that controls your own genetic limits. You may want to argue, but I've seen so many gym bros, particularly those enhanced lifters who are jacked but definitely not fit. How do you explain that? Why are they not ruled by this silent governor? Well, why don't you have a look at the rate of their heart attacks and cardiovascular diseases? I would say you definitely have the liberty to disrespect the governor, but just be aware of the hefty fine you have to pay for your own conduct. If you have watched the first episode of this series, Elephant in the Room, you will know Coach Greg's calorie burn guesstimator on his own website. It is the most useful online tool to calculate your own cardiovascular fitness, in my opinion. But here, following the silent governor theory, we can use this calculator in a reverse way, using the hourly calorie burn figure that we know to back calculate the maximum body weight we can carry based on fit level. Why choose fit level, you may want to ask, instead of moderately active level or super fit level? Well, as mentioned before, muscle tissue is metabolically active. So I don't think just being moderately active is going to provide enough cardiovascular support for your muscle mass. But on the other hand, I have yet to see any endurance athlete with impressive muscularity. So being super fit is probably a bit too much ask for building muscle. So that only leaves fit level as the most fit option, I suppose, pardon the pun, fit. Now, I'm going to use myself as an example. I currently maintain the ability to burn between 850 to 960 calories in 1 hour. That puts my maximum weight range between 84 kilos and 100 kilos. And I currently weigh under 80 kilos, definitely under the maximum weight, which means there's still quite some room for me to put some muscle mass without worrying about my health conditions. And during my second round of bulking in November 2024, my peak weight was 87 kilos, still within the low end of the weight range, 84 kilos to 100 kilos. This partially explains why my bulking went much more successfully than most other lifters, and gives me enough confidence that should I decide to go on serious bulking again, before I reach the midpoint 92 kilos, or at least 90 kilos, my health conditions will not be compromised. That's how you use your cardiovascular fitness to back calculate your own genetic limit. In my eyes, this new version of genetic limit is a much more holistic interpretation than the traditional version, fat-free mass index 25. The traditional definition views muscle hypertrophy as a single event that does not have to fit into the whole picture of physiology, whereas the new definition recognizes that muscle hypertrophy is part of physiology, controlled by physiology, and cannot exist to the detriment of physiology. Like I said before, the governor may be silent, but that never means its governors should not be observed. What do you think? Do you agree with my silent governor theory and the new definition of genetic limit? Or do you still prefer the traditional version of it? Please comment below. I will be interested to see your thoughts. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Peace out.